Hi everyone, my name's David, and this afternoon I'm going to be running a session of Lovecraftesque by Becky Annison and Josh Fox of Black Armada Games. So Lovecraftesque is a collaborative storytelling game that's designed to sort of create stories in the vein of Lovecraft's work. So games about normal people getting embroiled in the machinations of dark eldritch forces. It's designed, as I said, to kind of replicate a lot of the feel of a kind of Lovecraft story, but without actually being tied directly to the mythos, which both basically allows us to explore this sort of theme and tone of story without having to sort of have that background knowledge on the world, or be spoiled by our sort of prior knowledge of how things work, and also allows us to avoid some of the more problematic elements of the Cthulhu mythos. Running this game as part of the Gauntlet Hangouts. The Gauntlet is an online role-playing game community focused on playing indie games, from sort of story games, OSR, the whole range really of sort of independent, sort of small press role-playing games. As well as we have these, we have the Hangouts, which we're running as part of now, which is a kind of gaming calendar where you can sign up to play games online. We also have a monthly zine which covers indie games, as you might expect, which has sort of both has new games and content for existing games in there. We also have a series of podcasts, and there's also some community forums that are publicly available. You can find information about all of these at the website at www.gauntlet-rpg.com. So do check that out and see if it interests you. So I think with all that said, I will just I said my name's David. I'm based here in the UK. I use he/him pronouns. And Kyle, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Kyle, he/him pronouns.
Okay, and I'm Stephen. I live in Washington, D.C. Also he/him pronouns.
Brilliant, thank you. So I know it's both, because we've had a little chat offline, it's both Stephen and Kyle's first time playing Lovecraftesque this evening. I've played a couple of times myself before and facilitated before, so hopefully I'll be able to teach the game okay. So the idea in Lovecraftesque, I did explain briefly before, is that we will be telling the story of a character known as the Witness. The Witness is basically the protagonist of our story. They will come into contact with the kind of the lurking horror that dwells beyond the everyday life on Earth, or however you want to put it. This character will be shared by all of us over the course of play. The way we will play, there are 3 distinct roles in this game. The first role is that of the narrator. The narrator functions kind of like a traditional GM role, essentially. The narrator is responsible for describing the world and what happens in it, and essentially determining the outcome of any actions taken by the witness. It's all, as I mentioned previously, but everything is narratively controlled. There's no randomization of results. It's simply, what we all say is what happens. The specific sort of responsibility that the narrator has is that when they frame a scene, and they frame the scene by basically saying where it takes place, who's there, what's happening, all that sort of stuff. Fairly common sort of story game, setup. But in each scene that a narrator runs, they must reveal a clue. So what a clue is something kind of out of the ordinary, something that is, you know, a little bit weird, a little bit off, a little bit odd. However, when we start playing, whilst these things should be odd and strange and unexpected, they should also be of the sort of thing that, you know, somebody could rationalize away, or, you know, explain to themselves and not worry too much. Something they would notice and something they would remark on as being unusual, but not something that they would automatically go, wait, there's obviously, you know, magic afoot here, sort of thing. So as an example, what might make a good clue at the beginning of the game might be, say, you know, the feeling that you're being watched wherever you go, or people acting strangely in the town, you know, people averting their eyes and not talking to you, or anything that kind of hints that something might be going on but doesn't kind of explicitly bring something weird. Having like a horde of zombies marauding down the street is too far. That's not something that's appropriate as a clue. It's too sort of obvious, too open and shut. And that's the role of the narrator. Explicitly, what the narrator can't do is in any way control the witness whilst they're playing. They can only control the world around it. The second role is the witness. Sorry, is the no, it's the witness. Yeah, is the sorry, I had a momentary blank there. And they control the character of the witness in that scene. Again, it should be noted that these roles will rotate as we play, so you won't be in one role for the entirety of the game. You'll be in multiple throughout. So the witness controls the thoughts, words, and actions of the witness, of our sort of protagonist character. Whilst the witness is playing in that role, that is all they can do. They can only act through the character, and they do not have any capacity to sort of describe the sort of the world as a whole. Meaning less like sort of the narrator says, "Oh, what do you think your house looks like?" But you know, in terms of you know, yeah, you at that point you are purely playing in a sort of player character mode essentially. There are so you'll notice in the character keeper there is a little précis of your role. Once you have that selected, we'll go through that in a second. Though that's not the most legible thing because I couldn't fit everything onto the one space in the way I wanted. I'm fiddling about with that, but I didn't unfortunately have time to do it properly. But you'll also see in the folder I've shared with you, there's a little reference document in there which has character cards for the has basically a rule summary and character cards that give you the role descriptions. So you can reference that as well if you want to. The final role is the Watcher. So the Watcher is a almost like a kind of co-GM or sub-GM role where you are there to assist the narrator in fleshing out scenes and add details to their descriptions. And so explicitly as a Watcher, you should not be trying to like take control of scenes. That is the narrator's prerogative. You cannot introduce a clue into the scene. So essentially you can't really do anything that drives the narrative forwards. You're there more to add color to the scene. So like the narrator might say, "Oh, you enter a cave and there's water dripping down from stalactites," and as the Watcher, you might say, "There's patches of moss growing on the stone where the water has fallen on it," or something like that, just to add a bit of color to the scene. Because as I'm sure you're familiar with, because of the kind of inherent issues with crosstalk in an online format. The best way, I think, and I think that some of this advice that's in the book came from experience from within the Gauntlet. But some of the better ways of handling this role in an online environment are one for the narrator to explicitly ask questions of the watcher, so that the narrator might say, again, going back to that the example of the cave, the narrator might say, and you enter a cave and there's water dripping down from stalactites, and then turn to the watcher and say, and what do we see here that shows us that it has been that men have lived here in the past. At which point the narrator might say, oh yeah, there's a human skeleton submerged in a pool of water, something like that. The other option, if the watcher thinks of something that they want to add into the scene, just unmute yourself and maybe wave or something, just to try and attract the narrator's attention, and from the perspective again of the narrator, try and keep an eye on the watcher's little video screen down in the corner, and if it looks like they're trying to say something, give them the space to do so. But as I said, the watcher should not be kind of dominating or guiding the scene. They should just be there to kind of develop and deepen it. Is probably the best way of putting it. So those are the roles. The way the roles work is that one person will start off the game as the narrator. The person to their right in the character keeper will play the witness. Any other players will take on the role of the watcher. As there's only 3 of us, obviously there'll only be 1 of us in each role at any given point. At the end of the scene, once a clue has been divulged and recorded, then at that point the narrator can bring the scene to a close whenever they choose. And generally speaking, for sake of brevity and all that, probably you don't want to be hanging around with the scene much longer after a clue has been revealed, unless something particularly interesting comes out of it. But the purpose of the scenes is to reveal the clues and then move on to a new one. Once we have concluded a scene, everyone will take a moment to, and as I mentioned previously, you have a little tab in the character keeper for one each, to record we will do what's called jumping to conclusions. So after a clue has been revealed and after that scene has ended, we will all take a moment away to write down what we think is going on. And obviously our ideas may be very sketchy at first, because if the first clue we have is like, people in town seem to be acting a bit strange, there could be any number of reasons for that. So you pick whatever you think is like the most interesting idea and you record that. When it's your turn to narrate a scene, you should be kind of playing the scene and the clue towards your current conclusion, basically. You should be treating kind of your current conclusion as if that is right. But obviously, we will do the jumping to conclusions after each scene. So there may be one scene where you think, oh, it's obviously fishmen kidnapping local people and everyone's scared. But then in the next scene, there might be it might be revealed that, like, recently a meteorite crashed into a field, and you might think, oh, actually, it's obviously like this meteorite is mind controlling people, and that's why everyone's acting weird. And that's now the conclusion that you're working towards. And we'll basically keep evolving that through each of the scenes that we play, and as a result, we'll start to draw out. Obviously, the ideas will start to tease out ideas from the clues and stuff that we give out that we'll each interpret in our own way, but that we'll each hopefully have an idea that we're working towards. And there's a conclusion basically at the end where one of those is revealed to be the case. But we'll get onto that when we get to it. It's not super important right now. Just know that basically we should, after each scene, we should be evaluating what we think is going on. It should also be noted, I should say, this kind of goes back to what we're talking about, the clues, but clues should always be, they should kind of be odd and strange, and defy, well, that's it, they should sort of defy explanation, and they shouldn't be too explicit in what they actually are, in the terms of like finding a mysterious old book that has strange secrets written in it is cool, but finding a book that says, oh, there's a big fish man and he's trying to take over the world, isn't. The clue should always be a bit ambiguous and a bit strange, rather than being an actual concrete, this is what's happening. They may very much point towards a potential outcome, but they shouldn't just sort of be too explicit in what you're sort of giving out. So that's the basic flow of play. There's one other factor that we all have, is we've all been dealt a special card. These special cards will all have their own sort of mechanics on them. What these do, the other thing I'll point out in the reference sheet as well is there's some sort of core assumptions I'll read through in a second, but I'll get to that in a moment. But with the special cards, these can be brought into play when a certain thing is triggered on them, or not, depending on exactly how they are. There are two types of special card. One of them is something that has a constant ongoing effect, and they tend to alter the rules about what we're allowed to bring into scenes, because there are some guidelines on what we can have in any given scene. For instance, one of the rules is you can't have a monster on screen. You can't have a strange creature. Everything has to be kind of seemingly human. That's one of our basic ground rules. But one of the cards that has an ongoing effect might be, actually, you can start hinting that there is a monster and eventually reveal that there is a monster. So that kind of brings in that narrative element. The other type is an instant effect. And those do something that it comes into effect immediately, resolves, and then sort of goes away. What these ones usually do is let you take over temporary control of a scene, and usually introduce a strange element as part of that new scene, or do something with that scene that you wouldn't normally be able to do. There's a little bit of admin around what happens when those cards are played, but we'll touch onto that if and when it happens. Particularly, like I said, particularly for the ongoing effect card, there is generally a trigger on them, whereby you can only bring them into play after a scene in which something has come up. It should probably come as no surprise to you that if you have that card and you're narrating a scene, you can absolutely narrate the card towards a situation that would allow you to narrate the scene in a direction that would allow you to bring that card into play. That is absolutely perfectly kosher. It's even to an extent, if you're playing as the watcher, you might be able to introduce a detail that allows you to play your card after that scene if you so choose. The only thing to caution on that is, again, obviously that doesn't override the fact that you still can't make huge sweeping changes to a scene or bring in something that would be a clue. But if it's just something like, say you have again, I'll go back to my example from before, but say you have the card that says strange locals, and when that card is in play, you can have local villagers doing strange things. You could absolutely, when the if somebody's narrating a scene in the village pub, you could sort of say, oh yeah, and people look at you as you come in suspiciously and use that as justification to bring in your strange locals card after that scene if you wanted to. That would be fine. So I know that's been a lot of talking from me, but it's actually, I think the game is quite simple once you get into the play of it. There's just a bit of setup first. So the only other thing that I think is an important thing to cover before we begin is to the very first thing is our safety procedures. So this is a horror game. There will be some horrific content involved, no doubt, which we want to engage with safely and productively, essentially. So in order to make sure we do that, we'll be using some safety tools, which in this particular instance, we have had a discussion offline about lines and veils. Lines are things that we will not include in the game at all. Veils are things that we can include, but we'll kind of allude to obliquely. We'll fade to black if they come up. We'll, in general, just not dwell on them too much. They can feature, but they shouldn't be a big part. It shouldn't be something we dwell on. So we've had that sort of discussion. We have a couple of lines and veils in place that we will be adhering to. Those can be added to as we play. If something comes up that you suddenly think, oh, actually, I didn't realize that there was likely to be spiders in this, and I really don't want to deal with spiders. We can put that line in. The next one we will be using is the script change tool by Bree Bo Sheldon. So script change is a tool that lets us essentially control how we run scenes briefly to ensure that we're engaging with them in a helpful, healthy way, and taking into account any sensitivities anyone has around them, or just like tonally stuff as well. So there's a few basic commands that we use, and basically you just need to say this command, and then we'll usually have a quick break to discuss exactly what's going on anyway. But firstly, the probably most importantly is pause. Pause just lets us momentarily stop the action, and then we have space to discuss what's going on. And maybe at that point you might want to just actually, I'm kind of not happy with the direction the scene is going. Can we change course slightly, because I don't want to touch on this thing, and I think that it looks like that's where we're going. It may just be because like the scene's quite intense and you just want to say, look, can I just take 30 seconds to calm down before we carry on with the scene. It might be because you go, oh sorry, there's someone at the door, I just need to go and answer that, I'll be back in 2 minutes. That's all fine. So that's sort of what pause is for. The most important thing to bear in mind with pause is that once we've paused the scene, if there's then anything you wish to discuss in a sort of an out of character way, or an out of game way, that is a space that we have available to do that. So it's a good way of just checking in and just saying, pause, are you happy with what we're doing? Is this cool? Yep, cool. Resume, which is the resume is basically just the key word essentially for just saying, okay, we're just going back into playing normally again now, which can either be used, or we can just use natural language to do that. Either's good. Rewind is when something has just happened and you are no longer, you think, actually, I think I'm not happy that we went there. Can we go back to sort of before that happened and go forward and do it differently? It may even just be because you say, oh wait, I said the guy was wearing a hat, but actually I think I'd rather it if he had an umbrella. I mean, that's a silly example, but that's also perfectly fine. It's just a way of sort of noting that you want to change something that's already happened. Fast forward is just a way of us moving over something. So it might be you think, actually, I think the scene's gone on long enough now. I think we've got everything out of it we're going to. Can we just skip ahead to the next scene now, because I think we're sort of played out here? Or it might be, again, sort of, yeah, I know that you're about to like beat up this zombie, but I don't want us to have like a big gruesome fight scene. Can we just assume that you've beaten up the zombie and move ahead? That's fast forward. That's perfectly fine for that. The other two are step by step, frame by frame, I think, actually. Sorry, I always forget the name of that one. There is a little document in the shared folder, I should say, if you want to refer to this. It's got more written down in there. This is basically just to say, like, can we go through this scene slowly and like stopping to check in, like, as we go through it, because again, it might be coming towards area that you're sensitive with, and you just want us to like make sure we're all on board before we go ahead with them. That's fine. Final one is instant replay, which is just something you can use at the end of a scene to either, even if it's just to say like, oh, I really like what you did there, that was cool, I'd like to see more of that, or to clarify exactly what happened. It's like, oh, did you steal the gem from the priest or not? I thought that's what you're doing, but I wasn't 100% sure. So that's script change. And very finally, we have the X card. This is basically our emergency brake of a safety tool. You can invoke the X card by holding your hands up in X format, by saying, I'd like to X card that, by putting a little X in the chat. That will basically, it works very similar really to kind of pause and or rewind when used in combination, in that we will just, when you say you want to X card, we will stop for a moment. We may need to clarify what it is you're X carding if it's not immediately apparent. But basically, if it's some content you are not happy with, we want to excise it from the game. We don't want to deal with it any further. We may just, like I said, we may need to know exactly what it is that you want to remove, but we will not ask you to justify why you have done that or want that. We will just accept it and move on. So I think that's our safety chat. So I think what I'm going to do is I will introduce the setting we're playing in. Then we'll take a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll actually get into the play. I apologize that this intro talk is a little lengthy, but hopefully we're sort of all on the. It'll allow us to sort of play through fairly easily from this point onwards. So we are playing one of the scenarios from the Lovecraftesque core book. In specific, the one we're playing is called Resonate by Graham Walmsley. It is set in New York in 1972. It's will be focusing on the new up and coming disco scene. So new, in fact, it's not even really referred to as that yet. But this is specifically centered or features Black, Latino, and queer people are the primary proponents of the sort of the disco scene. Dancing in privately owned clubs and to sort of soul music that will eventually evolve into the more commercialized disco scene of the late 70s and early 80s. It will feature sort of gay New York in general, and our witness is a man by the name of Luis Alvarez, and I will read the quick spiel on him from the scenario itself. I've preceded his sort of traits onto the character keeper. Yes, Luis Alvarez is a former soldier of a quasi-military governmental organization that fought to suppress mythos threats. After a failed operation, the force was disbanded. To forget the organization that abandoned him and the fight that is no longer his, Luis is losing himself in the New York disco scene, abandoning himself to drugs, sex, and dance. His strength is love of men. Luis is driven by the love of the men on the disco scene, drawing strength from them and wanting to keep them safe. He loves the sweat, the masculinity, and the community. His personality trait is self-destructive. So that just gives a kind of a very thumbnail view of our witness. We will obviously learn more about them as we play and as the witness player portrays them in each scene. So yeah, as I said, we'll take a 5-minute break there. So hopefully that will give you something to ponder over in the next couple of minutes. And when we get back, we'll start setting up our first scene and assigning out roles as we see fit. So yeah, if we'll see everyone back in 5. Cool. Right. So yeah, as I said, we'll begin our first scene in just a moment. So the last thing I want to mention, I sort of alluded to this before, but I will just read it out explicitly, is that I find the right tab again. What we have in place, what is known as the rule of creeping horror. This basically constrains what we are allowed to include in scenes. So the rule of creeping horror states that everything must be rationally explicable, and there may not be any overt attacks, including theft, sabotage, or other destruction, or any kind of violence, including discovering bodies, until the final horror, which is basically the last phase of the game. However, as mentioned, special cards allow you to break this rule and provide inspiration for clues. Instant effect cards have an effect when played. Continuous effect cards remain in play and enable new options for the whole of the game. Also, though, it should be said when we say everything must be rationally explicable, that doesn't necessarily mean probably explicable, but it means that it should be at least possible for someone to come up with a rational explanation for why it might happen. And the no attacks thing is slightly more obvious in its formulation, I think. As I said, as special cards are played, that will make exceptions to those rules. So just to bear that in mind. But that's something just to be aware of for the purposes of framing scenes, particularly if you're the narrator and are bringing in clues. So yeah, just to the very brief recap is that the narrator decides when and where the scene happens, who is there, and what is happening. The witness says what they do and say, and narrates their inner fears and rationalizations. Those rationalizations are quite important thing. I didn't mention that, I don't think, explicitly earlier. But yeah, we should be kind of part of being the witness is also explaining why it is that you are kind of denying that there might be something weird going on. So just be aware that that's something you can bring into scenes. And yeah, finally, the watchers are there to add extra detail and elaboration to the narrator's descriptions. At the end of the scene, everyone leaps to conclusions about what's going on based on what's happened in the scene and what's been revealed. We'll also note down the clue that was revealed. Rolls pass left after every scene, or right in that case, because it's on the screen rather than at a table. The thing I should mention, though, is that once a clue has been introduced, if it makes sense that clue come up in another scene, then the watcher can add that in just as a background detail, as long as they're not elaborating on and developing that clue into being something else. As long as they're just referencing it, that's fine. So again, to use the previous example, if the clue is that the locals are acting weirdly in any scene after that clue has been introduced, the watcher, whoever is being the watcher, can have locals doing strange things in the background of as a detail that they add. That's not adding a new clue at that point. Cool. So all that said, does anyone want to narrate the first scene? I am happy to do so if no one else has a particular desire to do so, but if either of you wants to, then feel free to call out.
No, I would rather have the person who has played the game before take the lead.
Sure thing. Yeah, I figured it would make most sense to do it that way around. But cool. So as I am the narrator, that means that Kyle, who is to my right in the character keeper, will be playing the witness, which is actually how the screen is currently set up, and Stephen will be playing the watcher. So, as my as the narrator, I get to say where the scene will take place and sort of what's going on with it and who's present. So I think I'm actually going to take some stuff from the inspiration list in that tab, because there's a couple of ideas in there that I think come together quite nicely. So I think this scene is going to take place in the attic, which is it's a sort of legendary dance venue. It's, as the name suggests, it's on the top floor of a warehouse building. It is, technically speaking, it is a private by invitation party, so the venue is not licensed. It's a sort of shadily legitimate party. As the scene takes place, there will be pumping music. The sound system here is amazing. It's perfectly set up, using the very latest in sort of sound design technology. You've got kind of the tweeters and the woofers and all the other stuff going on, and this it creates that kind of proper wall of sound effect on the dance floor. There is thumping drums pound out 4 to the floor, as some music is playing. There's flashing lights. There is obviously a glitter ball reflecting light around the inside of the building in strange ways. Luis Alvarez is present. He's currently, I think, dancing on the dance floor. And where we come in with the scene, another young man, Joey Antico, is dances up close to sorry, lost my train of thought. To Luis. Kyle, do you want to give us a brief description of Luis as we see him sort of for the first time?
I guess he's a Latino guy, probably in his late 20s. Sorry, I don't really have an image of him yet.
No, that's cool. That's perfectly fine for now. Joey it's like dance up to him. Joey's, I think, maybe a little younger, skinny guy. He's sort of wearing a kind of bright coloured silk shirt over just a pair of jeans, and he dances up. Stephen, when what do we sort of see to sort of in the throng of the dance floor or the environment of the club in general that shows people that are kind of lost in the euphoria of the moment?
So several of the people, their eyes are kind of glazed, as if they're on drugs, but it's not a drug that Louise recognizes.
Cool. There's definitely people here who are like, it is not uncommon for people here to be on something, and Joey is certainly no exception. He's kind of wide-eyed and kind of looking a little intense, but like smiling broadly as well. He says, "Louise, man, it's good to see you back in town again. I didn't know you were back in New York. I thought you were off traveling or whatever it was you were doing."
Yeah, I'm back now. Yeah.
Oh, cool. It's good to see you here, man. This party's out of sight. It's man, the he kind of leans in a little bit and says, "There's some seriously good shit going around now, man. This stuff, it makes acid look like Tic Tacs. It's like he reaches into her pocket and says, "Do you want some, man? It's like the things I've seen with it you would not believe."
Yeah, man, that sounds great. Let's do it.
Cool. And he said reaches into sort of into his pocket of his jeans and pulls out like a little small plastic wrap of pills, and he sort of thumbs one out into his palm and slips it over to you. I mean, he's not really being all that stealthy about it, truth be told, because this is by no means an unusual thing here. But the pill he hands over, it's small and small and purple, and it almost actually has a slightly like metallic-y sheen to it. But he hands it over, and he passes you his like half-drunk bottle of beer to wash it down with.
Luis just swallows the pills right down.
Cool. So yeah, I think does as he takes the pill, I think do you think he's had much experience with hallucinogens before?
Some experience. I don't think he's an expert. He's just kind of dipped his toe in the waters.
Sure thing. So yeah, for a moment, nothing happens straight away. It's not like super fast acting, but it's not long before you can start to feel kind of the edges of your vision sort of blurring a little bit. It feels feel much lighter and less attached to the ground, less attached to everything around you. And you kind of the flashing lights start swirling around in your vision faster and faster. And it's like you're spinning round almost out of control. But you don't feel like you're moving. It's just like the lights are going around and around. And then suddenly, like they scatter. And you see, it still seems to be the same place, but everyone is sort of frozen in place and isn't moving at all. It's almost like a freeze frame in a film. And some of the people here don't seem to be the people that are actually here. Not that you knew everyone here by face at all, but there's just that moment of dislocation. And how does that make Luis feel?
Pretty unsettling. I mean, he's doing his best to sort of like play through it, I guess. Keep on dancing and stuff, but it's more discomforting than not.
Yeah, that's cool. And I think the lights, you kind of get that swirl and flash of lights again, and the music that you hadn't actually even realized had gone silent rises back up again, and it's pounding, and it's both louder but not that way. Sometimes you get like loud music play and it's so loud that you can't make it out. It's not like that. It's loud, but it's clear, and the lights are filling up your sort of field of vision, but the colors seem crisper and brighter.
All right. I guess Luis keeps dancing along, just like, yeah, this is pretty good stuff now. Yeah,
man. I was telling you, it's like, it's real good stuff. It's well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know where. I don't know how they where they came up with it, but I don't know. This is some serious stuff. But anyway, and he kind of pats you on the arm and says, I'm going to go and I was supposed to be meeting up with Oscar. So, like, catch you around later, yeah?
Yeah, see you around, man.
Cool. And yeah, and he kind of again sort of merges back in with the dancers, and that is, I think, where we'll leave that scene. So what I'm going to add in here as the what I'm going to add in is the clue. Metallic purple pills. And I'll just put in the description that they cause hallucinations. I'm also, at this point, I'm going to tick the little box next to where it says special card on my character keeper, and it will reveal. Oh, actually, that mine it doesn't have the name on there, but the card that I'm playing is called Visions. You may play this after a scene that mentioned or included dreams, visions, or hallucinations. So this is an ongoing effect card. So from part 1 onwards, we can now reveal clues that are well beyond rational explanation, but only if those clues are revealed through the form of visions. And also, just to clarify, these special cards affect everyone. Everyone can kind of play off of that now. It was just mine to introduce. Cool. So what we will do is so we get to have a quick chat, though this probably should be led by Kyle, who gets the kind of the whip hand on it. On the very left of the character keeper, under where says Luis Alvarez, we get to add a single trait to his character. So the thing we think was probably represented most in that scene that he was just in, and basically we'll accrue these again also at the end of each scene that will kind of give us a fuller picture of Luis as we play through. So what do we think this can basically be any single trait. It can be like something physical about him. It can be a personality trait, we think, or just a behavior or habit. Does anyone have any ideas for that? Cool. I think what I might add in then, if no one else has any preferences, is that I think I'm going to add in that Luis is a familiar face on the scene. So I think one of the things we established there was obviously Joey knew him already. So I think that it's likely that in future scenes, people are likely he's likely to be known to people in general. That's something we can add in. And yeah, the final thing is that we will all go to our conclusions tab and just write a little. It only has to be like a couple of lines just on what you think might be going on. You are obviously free to extrapolate beyond what's been explicitly established in the scene. So obviously we know that there are these hallucinogen pills going around. Maybe you think that these hallucinogen pills are being released by the government to mind control people. If you have no evidence for that at the minute, but if you think that might be what's happening, then you can write that down as your conclusion. You don't need to have kind of we're specifically are extrapolating beyond what we know with these conclusions.
And these conclusions are as a player and not as Louise?
That's right. These are as a player. These are essentially guiding what we think is going on as players.
Right.
Louise may or may not believe that anything out of the ordinary is going on at this point. We all know that there is something going on. Also, one of the things that you can put in, and you're not required to at this stage, but you can also start to put in ideas of what you think will happen if, like, the schemes of the whatever supernatural entity is behind this go unchecked. So you could say, if the CIA do release all of their mind control pills, they will subvert the entire human race to their schemes or whatever. The idea is basically just to give yourself something to build towards in subsequent scenes you do. And as I say, we will update these conclusions at the end of each scene when new information comes to light. Cool. Right. So when everyone is done with that, the role of narrator will pass to my right, so it will pass to Kyle, will become the next narrator. So in turn, Stephen will become the next witness, and I will be a watcher. The other thing as well, again, I didn't explicitly call out, but I think I implied it. But there's nothing to stop you from playing your card, your special card after someone else has seen. If they hit your trigger, that's perfectly legitimate. You also don't have to play it when you can, if you don't want to. But
okay. Quick question: what was the name of the guy who gave Louise the pills?
Sure, it's Joey Antico. It's actually one of the characters from the inspiration tab. I should probably find somewhere to put generalized notes on here that aren't clues. I will just add in a little column at the side. Cool.
Okay. I guess the scene opens in Louise's apartment. He's finally come back from the party, and just sort of like passed out in his bed and was having some like really messed up dreams. So he passes out and he finds himself in this like weirdly institutional building. Like, he doesn't recognize what it is exactly, but he knows the format. It's government or hospital or something. Like, he's been in this kind of building before, and he like kind of hears some like pounding feet in the distance.
Yeah, I go down the hallway, and I'm trying the doors on the offices, and they're all locked. And like I'm reading the names on the doors, and I can't even recognize the alphabet.
Yeah, and I think the corridor has those, when you have those like coloured lines painted on it that like guide you to like different departments of the building or whatever. But the lines, rather than just they almost seem to sort of glow brightly, almost like they are lights rather than just painted lines.
And as he's looking around, he's like swears that like pounding feet noise in the distance is like getting a little bit closer. But with all the echoes going around, he can't tell exactly where it is or how close it is.
Right, and he's walking down the corridor along one of these painted lines, and his feet are sort of sticking to the floor. I mean, not holding him immobile, but it's like when he lifts his feet, there's this resistance. And yeah, and his heart is starting to pound.
All right, and here's somebody like there's sort of like a voice now in addition to the feet, and he realizes it's Joey. Like you can kind of hear the voice. Just Joey's kind of saying to himself, like, "Oh God, oh God, oh God," just like like he's terrified of something. Just sort of talking to himself over and over.
Yeah, and it's like I'm trying to head towards the voice. I'm heading and like I'm trying to turn off of the line, but I can't, and it's pulling me down a different corridor.
And you're around the corner and you see Joey for a second just as he runs around from like the other end, and like he's terrified or something, and there's something like off about his appearance.
Sorry, we've gone into mute there.
Sorry, David, what's I can't remember. I don't know when I got muted, but like, so Joey's running around the corner, like the other end, and he's terrified, and there's something off about his appearance. David, what's an unusual thing about like how he's looking?
Yeah, so like he's pale, like super pale. And I mean, he's sort of Italian American anyway, so quite tanned olive skin, but his skin looks like really washed out, and you can just sort of see. You can sort of see the blood vessels and veins really clearly through the skin. It looks kind of translucent and waxy.
Yeah, and I'm trying to go after Joey, and I mean I can't go after Joey, but I stop myself from moving forward, and it's like I'm struggling to step off of the line.
Okay. And like Joey sees you, and he like opens his mouth like he's about to see something, but then just like get yanked back around the corner, like before he can get the words out, and then there's just like silence for a moment. And then I guess the sort of starts that like club music starts coming in over the speakers, and it's like you swear it's the exact same songs from last night that are still like too loud and too clear, and it's just the same music just getting louder and louder and louder.
Yeah, and I hear this word that's sort of repeated under the lyrics over and over again. Okatan. Okatan. Okatan.
And you finally like wake up, and you swear, like you wake up with that word ringing in your ears when you finally like gasp awake in your bed.
Yeah, and I go to the phone and I call Joey, but the phone on the other end, it just rings and rings and rings. Nobody answers. And I mean, I think that's the scene.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. So the clue. So the clue is the word Okiton.
So just to clarify, I think for these scenes, as the witness, it should be the narrator who brings in the clue.
Oh, right. Oh,
so,
you're right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
I know. I mean, it's okay. We're just getting to grips with
Right.
it. So I'm happy if you want to go with that, Kyle, or if you want to sort of name something else as the clue that came up in the scene as well. That's fine.
Yes. Thank you for correcting me.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Yes.
I guess the clue is he had like a weird dream about Joey, and I was thinking that he'd vanished too, but I guess we didn't get around to actually establishing that in the scene. So,
yeah, no, I think that's fair to say that you have the clue is a vision of Joey disappearing. Sounds cool, and that seemed to kind of be where I mean I certainly got that impression that was sort of what was going on anyway. Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, we can now we can so we can add in a trait about Luis, can add in that clue, and do our conclusions for the scene. So cool. Yeah. So yeah, what trait do we think we learned about Luis in that scene?
I guess he lives alone.
Yeah, that makes sense. Put that in. Cool. Yeah. So again, the roles go to the right. So Stephen is the narrator for this scene. I will be the witness, and Kyle will be the watcher. Oh, sorry, and so someone else has been marking the scenes for me. Thank you. Yeah, so briefly to explain this, we have in part one, we always have 5 scenes. So after we have done 5 scenes, part 1 will be over. We'll then move into part 2. I'll explain what happens. I'll explain how part 2 is different when we get to it. But for now, know that yeah, we'll play 5 scenes in part 1. Then we'll go into part 2. As you'll notice on the special card I played, what it can do escalates from in part 2. So at the minute, we can reveal clues well beyond rational explanation, but only seen in visions. From part 2 onwards, we can begin making elements of the vision real, whether rationally explicable or not. So that's at the point where, you know, to take an example from the scene we just did, we could have you could have had, if we were in part 2, you could have had Luis wake up and find that he had those same coloured lines painted on the floor of his apartment, or you know, something like that. But obviously we are not currently in part 2. We're still in part 1 at the moment. But yeah, so Stephen, your turn to frame a scene.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's late the next day, and Louise has been looking for Joey and hasn't been able to find him, so he's gone to visit Joey's boyfriend, like Sam Franklin, who works at a Greenwich Village coffee house.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I think, Luis comes into the coffee house, and I think he's sort of doesn't necessarily look out of place here, but I think he has got, perhaps slightly unsurprisingly for this, he is wearing a kind of an old, a military jacket on over just like a kind of white vest and tight jeans. He walks into the coffee shop and looks around for Sam. Is he behind the counter at the minute, or waiting tables?
Yeah, he's waiting tables. There are a few people in there, but not very many. It doesn't really get going until the evening. It's like they've got this little stage where it's like they have poetry readings and open mics and folk musicians and stuff. But there's nothing like that happening now.
Brilliant. Pardon. Yeah. So I think Luis he walks in. I think he just takes a seat. I think it's it's not a place to sort of stand on ceremony here. So he takes a seat, shrugs off his coat, and hangs it over the back of his chair. And I think he will sort of wave to Sam as he sits down.
Yeah, like Sam, he comes over, and it's usual coffee, black.
Yeah, Sam, that'd be great. Cheers. And hey, you got a couple of minutes to sit and chat?
Sure. Just let me grab that coffee, and I'll be right back.
Thanks.
Yeah. So he goes over back behind the bar and gets your coffee, and it's like he grabs a Danish too and brings it over, and sits down. And
so how's it going? Not looking too busy at the minute, but I imagine you'll be run off your feet later.
Yeah, it's fine. Just have you seen Joey lately? I mean, he was supposed to drop by for lunch, and I mean, didn't see him. He hasn't been at work.
No, actually, that's kind of what I came here to talk about. I tried to call him the other evening and didn't get through, and I just wanted to check. I wanted to check he was okay, but I don't know. Maybe he's.
Yeah. I mean, we're not exclusive or anything, but he wouldn't just skip lunch without calling. He's courteous, old school courteous.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, man. It's look, and he kind of leans in a bit at this point and sips his coffee, but sort of says, "Look, I know he's had his hands on something, a little out of the ordinary, and you don't think it's anything to do with that, do you?"
Yeah, you mean the drugs?
Yeah,
and reaches into a pocket and he pulls out a couple of pills. Yeah. These I don't know. I tried taking it with him a couple nights ago, and this stuff freaks me out. I got to tell you,
Yeah, no, I agree.
I mean, it
It's
didn't seem.
powerful shit, and it stayed with me a while afterwards.
I mean, it didn't seem like the kind of thing he'd OD on or anything. But
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, but I don't know. Maybe he's just like I said. I spaced the hell out. I was having weird dreams all night afterwards. Maybe he's just if he has taken too much, maybe he's just tripping out somewhere, and yeah, I guess I'm sure he'll be fine. But
yeah, well, if you find out where he got this stuff, I mean, let me know, because I don't. I mean, I don't want to control him, but I don't feel good about this. I want him to keep away from this stuff.
sure, yeah, I was wondering if you knew who he'd got it off, but
Nah, so someone at the club, I think.
cool. I guess I'll check it out. It's and I think at this point, like because like you know, Luis has had some dealings with some weird shit in the past, but like this doesn't seem like particularly. This doesn't seem like weird to him beyond the fact it's it's some new designer drug. Maybe maybe Joey, maybe Joey is just tripping out on it and has forgotten where he is, or maybe he's got involved with someone serious and he's got it from someone he shouldn't have, and there's some problems with that. So I think at the minute, while Luis is concerned for Joey, he's concerned for him in a very pragmatic kind of way, a very mundane kind of way. Yeah.
And there is one weird thing, and I showed these pills to a cop I know. I mean, someone cool, and it's like he hadn't seen anything like that before, and he's the kind of guy, if something new was coming out, he would know about it.
Yeah, then I guess whoever's behind this must be. I mean, it's not a couple of grad students knocking up in a, after midnight at the on the college campus, I guess.
No, I mean, these pills, the quality of the manufacture. I mean, this is not a small time operation, but I mean, it's weird that it's just showing up that the pills are just showing up at the club at this one place. I mean, if you're going to make something like this, you're gonna spread it around. You're not just. So I mean, I don't know. It's weird. I mean, it's like, you don't think it's the government, do you? Experimenting on us?
I mean, honestly, Sam, they don't tend to sneak around quite this much, They want some drugs tested on someone, they can just test it on some poor grunts usually.
Oh yeah, I mean, I hear that, but it's, you know, I mean, they would not hesitate to mess with queers. It's,
Well, true. I guess you're not wrong there.
well, but yeah, but anyway, hey, hey, if you keep your eyes out for Joey, just I would really appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No worries.
yeah, and it's good to see you around. I mean, keep in touch.
I will do. I'll and hey, thanks for the Danish. And well, hey, let me know when they've got something good on the stage, and I'll drop in.
Well, I know how you feel about poetry, so you probably want to skip tonight.
Sure thing, man. Sure thing. And I think Luis is probably going to sort of finish off the rest of his coffee. And yeah, put down the money and a little tip on the table. And I think I'll just like wrap the Danish up in a napkin and start heading towards the door.
Okay. So I guess the clue is the pills are only showing up around the club.
Sure thing. And I think, well, I mean, this one was kind of already established just in the general blur, but I think I will specifically call it out in here that Luis clearly has some sort of military experience. Cool. So we will attend to our conclusions. That's scene 3 done. Cool. So I will go back to being the narrator for this scene, which makes Kyle the witness and Stephen the watcher. So I think that this is the it's back at the attic, back at the club, because I think that was the next logical place for Luis to go with his to sort of chase up on where Joey might be. So Joey, Joey is not in the club. He's not on the dance floor. I think this evening it's probably not quite as busy as it was the time before, but there's still quite a lot of people here. But Luis has managed to get basically has managed to get in to speak with Tom Pleasance, who is the man that runs the attic. you're in sort of the office he has. It's kind of on like a mezzanine on one end of the club. The DJ booth is underneath it. And the so the office itself, it's kind of, it's that odd mix of like the actual room itself is, it's a lot of bare brickwork, and it's not like there's not like a huge amount of furnishings in here. What there are is lots of crates of records, like hundreds and hundreds of records up here. What do we see in here, Stephen, that shows that that Tom clearly has money?
Well, his clothes, for one thing. He's very, very well dressed, and he's got an earring. If you look closely at it, you can tell it's a real diamond, and not a small one either.
Sure thing. So yeah. He sort of says, "Hey man, Luis, isn't it?"
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I think we met at that. No, I don't. Was it? Anyway, he kind of just, freezes, not freezes up, but just like kind of stares into the middle distance for a minute, and then just says, "Whatever, it'll come back to me. It always does." And he laughs and says, "Can I fix you a drink of anything?"
Nah, I'm good for right now. Hey, have you seen Joey around? I've been having trouble tracking him down.
I saw him the other day, but not this evening, I don't think. But then I've not been down in the club much tonight. I've had some new records come in from out of Zimbabwe. Actually, there's some really cool shit in there, man.
That sounds pretty cool. Yeah, I'm just wondering because nobody's seen Joey in a couple days, and his boyfriend's starting to get worried.
Oh man, I think I'm sure he'll turn up. He Joey likes to party hard. He's probably just I don't know, caught up in something. I'm sure he'll come down eventually.
Yeah, I hope so. Just I don't know. The last thing I saw him doing was he hooked me up with those new the new pills, the little metal looking ones. Have you seen those?
I as owner of this venue, I try and make it my business not to see too much of what people may or may not take here. And he kind of gives a grin. But you sure I can't get you something to drink? He kind of starts mixing like a cocktail over a little cocktail bar on one side of the room.
You want? Yeah, sure. I'll have a martini or something.
Cool. And yeah, he makes whatever drink he's having. Looks quite dark and dark and red. And then he mixes a martini and hands it over to you. There you go, man. And cheers. He says, "Yeah, it seems to have been doing the rounds a lot lately. Like I say, I couldn't say who exactly has been holding, but it's you know, like I say, I try and what's it they call it? Plausible deniability. Yeah, I try not to get too involved in that side of the business myself, at least only as a consumer. And I let whoever might want to do that sort of thing do that sort of thing, and try not to get too involved.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Just let me know if he shows up. It'd really be a load off my mind if somebody saw him.
Yeah, of course, man. I'll keep you in mind if he turns up or if I hear anything. But yeah, and I think that point, you almost start to get that feeling coming over you again, that blurring of the vision of your peripheries, and that feeling of like weightlessness coming over you again as you sip your drink. And it's weird, like Tom seems almost to be moving in like almost like stop motion, just kind of slightly disconnected way that it just doesn't quite look natural. And as he turns towards you, for a moment, you see almost like his eyes are, it's not so much his eyes are glowing as it looks like there's a light shining inside his skull that's coming out of his eyes and out of his mouth and out of his nostrils and ears. And it almost has that sort of, again, it's colored, multicolored lights, almost kind of spilling out, almost like a disco ball reflecting off on the wall and the ceiling. And then as soon as it came over you, it is gone again.
Louis kind of like staggers back for a moment, just like all surprised and like,
Hey, are you okay, man? You seem a little out of it. Have you
it's just those pills Joey gave me a couple days back. The after effects really linger on those things. You run into that?
I've not actually taken any of it myself. I must admit. I prefer to stick with what I know, you know. Or at least when it comes to pills.
That's a good choice. I mean, the initial thing's great, but the after effects, they just annoying as all hell.
Well, that's look, man. All the best. Like looking for Joey. I hope the kid's okay. He seems like a decent sort. I see him in there a lot.
All right. I think that's the scene.
Yeah, I think so. The clue I'm going to add is a strange light inside Tom Pleasance. And that was scene 4. Okay, so I think we will take our 5-minute break there, and obviously, if as well you want to like fill out your conclusions and that, then we'll pop back for our next scene, which will be the final scene of part 1, and then after we've done that, I will explain the procedure with part 2.
Actually, but before we go off, I could use some help coming up with the trait for that scene.
Oh yeah, sure thing. Yeah, what would be a good one? I'm wondering maybe something like, just because of his like, maybe just something like determined or something, because he's clearly quite focused on this investigation into Joey's disappearance.
Right, or loyal to his friends.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I like that better. I think, yeah, loyal to his friends.
I'll have it in.
Yeah, cool. But yeah, so everyone back in 5. Right. So yeah, for our final scene of part one, Kyle will be narrator, which means that Stephen will be witness and I will be watcher.
Okay. I think this scene opens at the Pelican, another club. I guess Louise is just checking out a few other clubs, seeing if Joey's shown up some other places, and it wouldn't be the worst thing to try some other clubs too. Worst case scenario, you just party somewhere else for a night. So, what is Louis thinking as he walks in? Like, what's he looking for? What's going through his head?
I mean, I think he's trying to figure out if people here are using the drug too. So he's looking at people's eyes. He's looking at their body language and stuff, just trying to figure out, are they on drugs? Are they on the same drug?
And I think a few of the people in the club kind of feel Louise's eyes of wandering over them, kind of, a couple of them kind of wink and grin at him as he does so.
And as he's looking around, does he just look around? Does he go ask people, or how's he doing this?
I mean, I think he's looking around for people that he knows and sort of trusts, that he can ask a few questions to. I mean, he's been on the scene before. I mean, not super recently, but he's kind of a familiar face. So there must be people here that he knows.
All right. Yeah, he sees William Richards. Big name in the scene. Everyone knows him. They may not all know his name, but they all know him as that one just ridiculously handsome guy. Goes to all the best parties, knows everybody. And, if anyone knows Joey, it would be this guy.
Yeah, so I mean, I wave at William from across the room and sort of start making my way towards him.
When you get close, he's like, "Oh, hey, it's Louise, right?"
Absolutely, man. Good to see you. You are looking as fabulous as always. I mean, how do you do it?
I don't know. I guess somebody up there is looking down on me, or I'm not. I don't know. But hey, I thought you don't you spend most of your time over at the attic? What brings you to the Pelican?
There's something about the vibe at the attic. It's kind of. I mean, have you noticed kind of strange over there now?
It's been a few days since I've been over there, but I do get kind of an off vibe from Tom sometimes. I don't know what. I'm less into the music. Honestly, I'm gonna be honest with you here. I think a good crowd makes a party more than good music, but Tom just goes on and on about the new tracks he's getting in from the Himalayas or Madagascar or somewhere. I don't know.
Oh, I mean, I don't think that there's nothing wrong with being enthusiastic about music as long as you don't get in the way of the vibe.
Yeah,
I think if you ignore Tom talking about the music and you just go with the music, it's cool. But I mean, what's gotten me is there's this new drug they're taking over there. These purple pills. I mean, have you seen those anywhere else?
The little metal ones.
Yeah,
Uh that's where they started, huh? I'd heard a few rumors about them. They started in the attic, huh?
well, that's. I mean, that's the only place people seem to be taking them. I mean, I've been asking around, and it's like,
I
yeah,
I don't know. I'd
yeah,
seen a few people take them outside of there, but it's
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, and I mean, the way uh, like Joey Antico. It's like he's. I had this really weird dream about him. That, no, I mean, you know me. I don't take dreams too seriously, but this one, it's like something weird was happening to Joey, and like I've been looking for him all day. Nobody's seen him. Nobody's heard from him. It's,
that's messed up. You think like the cops got him or something, or
I don't know what to think. I mean, if the cops had, I mean, if the cops had him, you could find. I could find him. I mean, I asked a couple of cops I know who are not, you know, assholes, and yeah, there's they had. I mean, it's not like his body is turned up in some back alley someplace or somebody's arrested him or something. He's just gone. He hasn't been at work. He didn't show up. He didn't show up for a date. It's
huh? That's not like Joey. That's weird. Yeah, I haven't seen him, but I'll keep my ears open.
yeah. Like this place. This place looks normal. It's like the attic is something is going on there. Something really strange. But yeah, yeah. I mean, it's always good talking to you. And you hear anything about Joey, please get in touch. Yeah,
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. Uh, I guess we could end the scene there, but I don't think I've
right,
established a new clue.
right.
I think probably we'd need something a bit more
Yeah,
out of the ordinary to yeah
right,
for a clue.
right.
So I guess as you start walking away from William, you start hearing, a new song goes on, and it's weird because you swear this sounds just like one of the more experimental ones that Tom likes to play over at the attic, and you've never heard one of these play at like any other club because he's the one who goes out there with the music, and as worried as you are, something about it just sort of like this one you're really feeling it, and it's the music just sort of reaches in and grabs you, and you feel this big urge to just go out there and just let everything else slide for a bit and just go and dance.
And
Yeah,
this does seem like a real floor filler. People are swarming onto the floor and dancing and sort of dancing up close and yeah, there's sweat streaming down people's faces as they kind of just really get into the song.
yeah. And there are like there's like the strobe light in the club, and that's like my starts starting to hurt my eyes, and like for an instant as I glance down, it's like there's a silver path on the floor. Everyone is following a silver path, like in the dream where there were those colored lines, and the way people are dancing, there's some sort of design. but it's just for an instant. I can't see the design, and then I can't make out the design, and then it's gone.
And as the strobes flash, there's a moment where you swear you see someone else, their hands out, and you swear you see like a purple metal pill in their hands for just an instant. But then they're gone, and with the press of the bodies and everyone moving around, you completely lose them. But you swear you saw it for a moment.
Yeah, and it's like I'm trying to push my way through the crowd, trying to find this guy that I saw, but it's hopeless. I didn't get a good enough look at him, and yeah.
Okay. I guess that's the scene. The clue is straight from the inspiration. There's a new tune which makes people dance endlessly as lights and sound blur around them.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. Cool. So that brings us to the end of part 1. So this bit we do the same as before. So obviously we've got the clue. We'll update our conclusions, and we'll add in a new trait for Luis, which we can get to in a second. Stephen first. What sort of trait do you have? A trait in mind for Luis?
Let me think. Let me think for a second. I'm not.
I'm wondering actually if maybe something like direct or words to that effect might be a suitable one, because it seems like he has been quite consistently just sort of going.
Yeah, it comes straight to the point.
Exactly. Yeah. Cool. So part 2 plays out mostly the same as part 1. So some special cards may have escalated effect, as I mentioned already. For instance, one I have in play does. So we can start to begin making elements of the vision real, whether rationally explicable or not. Now, from this point onwards, at the end of any scene, or as part of any scene, after the clue has been revealed, the player of the witness may choose to begin what is known as the journey into darkness. This is basically beginning the end game for our game. You can declare the journey into darkness basically by just saying like where you want to. Sorry, the wrong thing there. By saying that you I lost my train of thought there. So you say after basically, if at the end of the part 2 scene you think that you know where or what or how you need to begin the journey into darkness to confront the final horror, you can say that you are beginning the journey into darkness. We will then go through the process for doing that. If we get through 3 scenes in part 2 without the witness choosing to begin the journey into darkness, then we will have what is known as a force majeure scene, and essentially what this does is we run it as a scene like any other, but the events will take place in that scene that force the witness to begin the journey into darkness. once we begin that journey into darkness, there's a specific way we do that. There's a specific format for doing that. It's slightly different to the scenes we've done so far. And then we will have the final scene, which is the confrontation with the horror. So, with that said, in terms of framing the scenes and stuff, we all treat them as normal. We don't have to do anything there. It's just that once we get to the end of the scene, if the witness at that point feels that they, like I said, feels in a position that they think that the beginning of that journey into darkness would make sense, they can just say that that's what they're going to do, and then we'll go through that process. So we are back around to having Stephen as narrator, myself as witness, and Kyle as watcher.
Okay. I think Louise is going back to the attic. Seems to be the center of whatever is going on. So he's whatever he's going to do, he's going to have to do it there. So, yeah.
Sure. And I think he comes into the club, but he's much like when he went into the Pelican, but possibly even more so. There's now kind of he's got that. He's quite clearly like scoping people out in a slightly paranoid kind of way, and I think he just seems on edge in general. He's not quite enjoying himself as much as he I mean, like, he's obviously been on, a serious errand up to this point, but he's now actually kind of starting to feel out of place and unsafe in his environment, I think.
Yeah, and that song you heard at the other club that made everyone dance, it's coming on here, and everyone is getting really into it.
And I think Luis can kind of feel the pull of the song, and he can like feel it bringing him towards the dance floor. But I think he's kind of digging like his fingernails into his hands and trying to like not give into it.
Yeah, it's like somebody bumps into you. It's like they are so into like the way that this thing is making them dance that they don't even see obstacles in their way.
Yeah, and I think that kind of that knock and that sort of momentary break of his concentration is enough that before he realizes it, Luis realizes that he's kind of joined in as well as this guy bumped into him. He's almost like dancing along with him.
Yeah, and you sort of hear a voice in your ears, like underneath the music is something whispering to you, and you can't make out the words, but you want to listen. You want to listen. It feels like it's promising something.
Yeah, I think that Luis is going to like really make an effort to like listen to these words, and I think he's still, like I said, I think he's still kind of getting swept up in the dance, but his mind is now kind of entirely focused on this, on the sort of sub vocal register of this song.
Yeah. Kyle, what does the whispering sound like? what is it? What sort of meaning is there in it that Louise can pick up on?
He it sounds like in some foreign language, and you can't recognize which one. And it always seems like the words are like just on the other side of making sense. Like he keeps swearing that it'll resolve into words, but it never quite does.
Yeah. And and as you dance, you're starting to see a pattern, but there are some obvious holes in the pattern where there should be people and there aren't.
So yeah, I think Luis is going to sort of dance through the crowd and try and find one of these gaps and fill it.
Yeah, and when you step into one of these gaps, suddenly you feel like you're falling.
And I think Luis does that sort of thing, like when you kind of get that falling feeling as you're drifting off to sleep, and kind of jerks forwards and probably bumps into somebody on the dance floor and kind of tries to shake off the feeling.
Yeah, and they reach out to study you, and like their hands pass through you. It's like you're not even really there anymore.
I think Luis kind of staggers back from that, and I think he probably does kind of let out a yell, just not just one of those like kind of entirely involuntary sort of sounds. And yeah, this is sort of starting to really weird him out now, because I think he can't quite tell what's real and what's maybe still this weird drug kicking around his system, and that sort of uncertainty is just like frying his nerves at this point.
Yeah, and you sort of black out for what feels like a second, and then you're in Tom's office. You're on like this couch that he's got in there, and Tom is bending over you.
Fuck, man, what happened? Did I? Shit.
Yeah, you really freaked out there, dude. Louise.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. It was. Oh, I don't know. It's just the music got to me. Like, I don't know. It was weird as hell. I think it still is these damn pills. I don't know. Sorry about that, man. I know it's not cool.
Right, and when you look at Tom at his eyes, instead of pupils, there's this bright light that's like a flashlight shooting out of his head, and it's really hard to meet his gaze.
Yeah, I think I will kind of purposely look away from him and probably start kind of doing that thing of just like trying to back off from him a little bit on the couch.
Yeah, I think like Tom holds out his hand, and he's got one of these purple pills in it. He's like, I think you need one of these Louise. I think you're having withdrawal. You're having a bad withdrawal. You need to take the pill, Louise.
Maybe you're right, man. I don't know. I'm freaking out pretty bad, I think. And I think he's going to take the pill, as in take it with his hand,
Right.
and like go to take it, but he's going to like palm it and slip it into the pocket of his coat.
Yeah. And Tom is. You good to go back out there?
Yeah, I think so, man. Maybe I should just go out and get some fresh air or something, and call it a night or whatever. It's again, I'm sorry for freaking out like that.
Sure thing. And like Tom puts his hand on. Sure, we'll see you tomorrow night, right?
Yeah, maybe, man, maybe. And
yeah, we really. It's good to have you back. We need folks like you in the club, folks who understand what we have to offer. The scene, it's good, but it could be so much more, you know? You could be a part of that.
Yeah, man, I think maybe you're right. Maybe you're right.
Okay, I guess that's the scene.
Yeah,
and there are so many possible clues in this.
Yes, yeah. That felt like a lot of ground there. Is there a specific one you want to single out? Do you think? I felt like the probably the I know it was sort of alluded to in the previous scene, but I felt like the significance of the dance felt like the core reveal of that
Right.
one to me.
Right. A mysterious symbol in the dance.
Yeah. I am very tempted to begin the journey into darkness at this point as well, because I feel like I've got quite a solid handle on what's going on. So I think what we see is we do see Luis heading out of the club into like an alleyway around the side of it, and he does that sort of thing of just like sitting down on the floor of the alley, leaning back against the wall for a moment, just like taking some deep breaths and breathing in the air, and then he reaches into that coat pocket, pulls out the pill, puts it onto his tongue and swallows it. So we are now entering the journey into darkness. So what will happen here is we will each take turns doing a very brief scene, not like an interactive scene, just a descriptive scene, kind of a couple of sentences, no more than that. When you do so, you can choose to narrate it in one of the three roles. You can choose to do it either as narrator, as witness, or as watcher. And which one you choose to do you don't have to announce necessarily which one you're doing, because this isn't bound by who's where or whatever. This is just your choice for each turn around that you get. And I'll just quickly go over what that entails. So as the narrator, you describe the environment that the witness encounters on the journey into darkness. And I will point out here, because of the card in play, this journey into darkness specifically can be a a journey purely in terms of a vision rather than necessarily actually a physical journey. So I mean, it can also have a physical element. We can play around with that as we see fit, but it can certainly take place as part of a vision. So yeah, if you're in narrator mode for your snippet, then yeah, you describe the environment and something that you encounter, something that the witness encounters on the way. If you narrate it in witness mode, then you narrate something about what the witness is feeling about the journey, the sense of foreboding and horror that sort of that comes about as part of it. And finally, you can take the role of watcher when you describe your snippet. And when you do that, you basically just expand on what the previous person said a little bit. So rather than come out with an entirely new thing, you just kind of add detail to what they've said. As I say, there's no set order to, we don't have to have a witness we don't have to have like a narrator then a witness then a watcher scene. It's just when it comes around to your turn, you get to assume one of those roles when you do your little bit of narration. As I said, it should only be a fairly short little snippet, a few sentences, basically, no more than that. We will go around counting those off at the end of each snippet. Once we have done 12, so the 12th scene will at that point, if you narrate that either the 12th scene or a later one, and then you do that as the narrator role, you can choose to declare that the journey has ended and we are at the final horror. If we get to the 16th turn, at that point you have to the person whose turn it is on the 16th turn has to narrate reaching the final horror. But at any point between 12 and 16 scenes, a player can choose to be the narrator and narrate that arrival at the final horror. You don't necessarily have to give a lot of detail about the scene for the final horror, but just make it clear that we have arrived, and then we will establish the final horror scene. And I'll go through how that works when we get to it. So, with that said, because I narrated the beginning of the journey into darkness, it's Kyle will have the first scene or first snippet, and then we'll keep going around in player order until we hit that 12th scene milestone, and at that point somebody can choose to end it when it's their turn. Cool. So Kyle, how does our journey begin?
Did Luis take the pill in your scene?
That's right. Yeah, that was the end of my scene. Essentially, was him. The end of the last scene was him taking the pill.
So he swallows it down, and suddenly, as before, all the sounds suddenly get louder, but then clearer, and the lights all become way too bright, and sort of get a chiaroscuro effect where there's light and shadow, or pitch blackness, and there's very little in between. And yeah, that's
nice.
Yeah, and he feels like he's no longer a part of the world, and he tests the wall, and it's it's soft. He can push his way right through the wall and back into the club.
And as he pushes through the wall, he sees that silver thread weaving out in front of him, and it's odd. It's one of those things where it looks like an optical illusion because it kind of looks just like a straight line, but there's also a feeling like it's going up maybe and curving, but it still seems like it's straight. But he can sort of walk along it and follow it through its weaving path.
So he sort of falls along the path, and it's weird because as wobbly as he feels, and he just sort of feet find the pattern and just sort of tracks him along as everything else sort of starts to fade away.
Yeah, and in the distance, he sees several shadowy figures. It's like they're literally like made of shadows. And as he gets closer to them, they start to become recognizable, and one of them, he can tell it's Joey.
And he feels strange because he feels like he knows instinctively that he is fearful and he is anxious, and he knows that he should be feeling his heart pounding at fast, but he just can't feel that physicality. He feels disassociated, and that feeling is making him feel like he should be feeling more and more anxious, but that sense of urgency just isn't, or not that sense of urgency, but that sense of visceral panic just isn't coming to him.
And his feet just kind of move on their own, just keeping him moving forward along the path.
And he gets to Joey, and Joey's like, "Oh shit, Louise, they got you too. It's our light. They're taking our light."
And Joey reaches for him, placing a hand, or what should be a hand, on him. And while it doesn't so much have a physical sensation, there's a warmth and a comfort to it that sort of radiates through Luis's self.
And Luis sort of starts to recognize a few other people, like some of the other shadow figures, and he's realizing that he also knows them from the attic too.
And Louise, he tries to fight the dance, the thing that is making him dance, but as soon as he stops moving, he just feels this incredible weakness, and Joey says, "No, you can't stop. If you stop, it just sucks you dry."
Okay, so this is the 12th scene now. So from this point onwards, someone as the narrator can determine that we have arrived at the final horror, though I am not going to for my scenes. I have another idea. But and there is Luis feels conflicted because he wants to fight against this, whatever is doing this to his mind, to what was his body. Maybe it's difficult to tell. He wants to be with these figures. There is comfort and a feeling of belonging with them, and he just wants to stay here dancing with them forever.
And he hears the sort of like dance music just sort of swell louder and louder, and the urge gets stronger.
Joy. How long have you been here? How long has it been?
And there is suddenly the light was bright before, and so bleaching everything into this kind of chiaroscuro shaded thing, but now the light, while still bright, it's so many colors all at once, and colors that Luis doesn't even have words for, just flash and burn across his eyes, and all he can see is light now, and all the shadow is burnt away, and we have arrived at the final horror. So the way that this works is one player will volunteer to be narrator for the final scene. At this point, you should have an idea of what the final horror is. And this should draw on as many of the clues that we have already uncovered as possible, and should sort of cohere them together. Obviously, should be inspired by the conclusions that we have reached, or that you have reached, I should say, over the course of the game. What we will do then is, like I said, that you will take on the role of the narrator. As ever, the person to your right will take on the role of the witness, and the third player will be the watcher, as usual. What we will do, though, in the final horror, because obviously we won't be looking for a clue, because at this point the time for clues is past. So there are two sort of potentials here, really. One of them is an encounter with some sort of entity, a monster perhaps, but some being, a god, an alien creature, a sentient force of nature, or something else. Or it can just be a horrifying revelation where you realize just something about what is going on that is draws things together. So then what we will do is quite simply the narrator will play out what the witness sees, and what they experience as part of this final horror, while the witness reacts to this, expresses what they're feeling, and takes action. It should be noted, just for avoidance of doubt, you may try in some way to escape the horror, and that's fine. As ever, the narrator gets to determine whether your escape is successful or not. But you can try to escape. You can try to fight the horror if you wish, but you will probably not succeed. In fact, you will not succeed, and the narrator will determine what that lack of success entails. Or finally, you may just watch and react and experience it, and that's fine. We will then, after that, have a short epilogue scene. So what I'm going to suggest is that we just take a quick break till the top of the hour, so another 5 minutes, well, just under 5 minutes maybe. Whilst we're taking that break, if you just want to give some thought as to what if you have some ideas that you might want to introduce that you think you would make a good final scene. Then when we come back from the break, I will pull for volunteers to narrate that final scene, and we'll then establish the best scene as possible. And then I said there'll be a brief epilogue scene after that as well. Cool. So yeah, see you back in, say, we call it maybe like 3 minutes.
Okay.
Although, I mean, not going to be running a stopwatch, but excellent. So, does anyone want to volunteer to be our final narrator?
I mean, I'm willing to have someone else do it.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely happy for you to do it if you've got an idea and something you want to go with. That's cool.
Kyle, you okay? Me being the narrator?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So that will make me the witness for the scene, and Kyle will be watcher. Again, the watcher role works much the same as it does in the previous scenes, other than the fact that you can kind of be a bit more. You don't have to worry quite so much about being constrained because we're not at this point. We're beyond the the slow creeping doom. We're into more serious things.
Yeah. So there are like these hundreds of beams of colored light that are shining down on the shadowy dancers, and as Louise's, I mean, not his eyes so much, because he doesn't really have physical eyes anymore, but as his perceptions become adjusted, he can see that each of these beams is coming from a different entity. It's like these balls. They're sort of like they're almost like eyes. It seems like that he can feel a presence behind each of them, and as he just he can see that there's a thread extending from several of them. It's like, and it's attached to people in the club, like the strongest thread of all. It's like maybe this may be been the very first thread, the one that's it's attached to Tom, and you can see that Tom and this creature are linked, and the people in the club who are caught up in this dance are linked. And it's like some of the threads are very weak, almost like hairs that could snap with just the slightest pressure, but others are thicker and stronger. And
I think that Luis is going to reach out for one of these threads and try and not try and break it or anything violent, but he's just going to try and feel it and touch it. And yeah,
and it burns. It's just this fierce energy that is ripping at the shadows. But I mean, you kind of feel like you can touch it. You could maybe not break it, but you could pull yourself along it.
Yeah, I think that. In fact, I think that Luis is going to look down and see if he has any threads attached to him.
Yeah, it's like there is a thread, but it's kind of dark and tangled, and it doesn't lead anywhere. It's you're not attached to this, and you're not attached to any particular entity. It's just it's drawing you to this place, and it's sucking the light out of you and taking it to this place.
And I think there's almost, I think Luis almost feels like a feeling of sadness that he doesn't seem to have any strong link or bond to anything here. And I think that feeling of almost comfort or belonging that he felt is sort of chills a little, and I think for a moment he just feels like just that feeling of slight emptiness inside of him.
Yeah, and as he is he still holding on to the thread even though it's burning?
Yeah, I think so. I think he is.
Yeah, and he can see the dark tangled thread. He's sort of pulling. He's pulling light from the thread, from the light thread, and it's burning away the dark thread that's attached to him. And it's like he can feel that he's moving away from this place back towards Earth.
Yeah, and I think he's going to. I think he's going to hold on to this thread feel and follow that tug back to Earth, because it doesn't feel like he belongs here, at least not yet.
And he can hear like this psychic screaming from this entity as the light thread it's starting to fade, just as his thread is fading, and it's accelerating. It's he has to make a decision right now. If he doesn't let go right now, both of the threads are going to be consumed.
I think he's going to let go at that point.
And he's sort of adrift now. It's like he can't reach Louise. I mean, he can't reach Joey, and he can't reach Earth. He's sort of trapped in a limbo between these now distant glowing lights, and he can sort of catch glimpses of New York, but he can't he can't touch it or see it clearly. He's like a ghost.
Yeah, and I think he's going to try and pull himself back in towards New York, but I don't know how much purchase he has on the world around him.
Yeah, it's like he can't. Yeah, he can't do it. It's like it's like somebody who doesn't know how to swim trying to swim, and he's just churning. He's not moving at all.
Cool. Yeah, so do we think that's the end of the scene? Or
Yeah, I mean, unless anybody has any other ideas for, yeah, I think that's the end.
cool. Okay, so we will now enter our final scene, the epilogue scene. So the narrator role will pass to Kyle, which means that the witness will be Stephen, and I will be a watcher. I think we will. So what happens here is the narrator will describe. The narrator will describe the sort of what we see of the final horror after this, as it will continue on. The witness will also explain sort of the fate of our witness, or what is remembered of them, perhaps, depending. We may see Luis coming back sort of to the real world, as this was just a vision, but a vision of something horrific that may affect him, or his disassociation from his body may be very, very real. That's up to the witness to determine for this scene. And I will, as ever, add color where appropriate. We're not bound by any strict order now, because you each sort of have control over your own bits of the scene. As narrator and witness, so whichever of you wants to start off our epilogue can do so. Yeah. So yeah, Stephen, what do we see of Luis following this vision, or following the events of the final horror?
I think he's found his way back to the coffee house, and he's sort of whispering, talking to Sammy, trying to communicate, trying to tell him what's happened.
Yeah. And I think we see I think we see Sammy do that sort of thing of like looking around as if he's heard something, but doesn't seem to be reacting to Luis's presence.
Yeah. And Luis, it's just he's fading. He can tell that he's getting less and less real, and he can't even really move anymore. He's sort of stuck here. Sammy was like the last connection he was able to make, and like even the other patrons in the coffee house, they're starting to become indistinct.
Excellent. And what do we see back at the club, Kyle, that lets us know whatever these beings are still very much present and active?
I guess the club's just, still packed, like lots and lots of people always streaming in, even as folks vanish.
Nice. Well, and that's the end of our investigation. Thank you very much for that, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with that. I will stop the broadcast now, and we'll just have a quick debrief here. So if you have been watching this, I hope you enjoy, and thank you very much.